Welcome back, everybody. It is Andrew McPeak here, and of course, co-hosting this podcast with me is the tech-savvy wonder herself, Gina Watts. We like to lie in these openings.
I'm going to get you for that.
We're glad you're here, Gina. Hey, folks, if you believe that school should be more than just essays and GPAs, if you believe that EQs are just as important as IQs, and if you expect amazing things from the next generation, then you're in the right place because we believe that too.
We really do. And I just can't wait for this particular episode for us to jump in and learn more about cutting edge technologies, even if I am not really tech savvy, but I want to learn.
And I want to have a posture of learning at all times.
I do have a posture of learning. And I want to learn about how these solutions are transforming education.
Yeah, well, I can't wait either. It's going to be incredible. We had the opportunity to interview a genius who was literally running an entire county's STEM and technology stuff, and she's incredible. Her name's Dr. Sally Creel. She was the perfect person to talk to about our subject today. But before we get into that, we got to answer our question of the day. Are you ready, Gina?
Always.
Okay, so here it is. Mm-hmm. If you had a magic app that could instantly download knowledge into your brain, did you ever see The Matrix?
Kind of, yeah. I don't feel like I watched the whole thing.
They do this in The Matrix. That's why it made me think. But if you had a magic app, you could instantly download any knowledge into your brain. What's the first subject you would choose to master? For the record, in The Matrix, he chose Kung Fu.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everybody was. I think, I don't know, like master. I have an answer, but I don't know if I want to master it because I think it might scare me a little bit. But like from a practical standpoint, I feel like it would be good to have some medical knowledge.
Okay.
Like so that I can...
Like you want to do surgery or like basic?
I said like I think basic so that I can be healthier.
Oh, that's good.
Care for
nutrition,
family members. Like
basic.
And like not have to Google it, but like just be able to have like enough knowledge for myself and for my family and to do the things.
Just to be able to be like, elevate that foot.
Yeah.
Put a wrap on that thing. Take this medicine.
Less trips to the ER and urgent care.
That would be great. I'm just trying to save money. That's what you're thinking.
Basically. That's what it always points back to.
Oh, that's great.
How about you?
Well, I've got nerdy answers to this question.
Of course
I listen to astrophysicists and I'm like, it'd be really cool to know. I have no desire to go into space, but to know how it all worked would be kind of cool. But the other one I thought of is, it's, as we record this, it's still football season. And I really love football. I would love to, I know a lot. I would love to know, way more because I hear people who know what they're talking about, like coaches and other people. And there's so much going on there that the more you know, the more rewarding it is to watch it. So that would be the other thing is being able to know all the nerdy stuff, like the coverages and the shifts and the motions.
Yeah. I feel like you and my hubby should have just a podcast about the nerdy stuff of football.
We'd have a great time. If only 100%. There was a podcast about the nerdy stuff of football.
There probably is.
There are thousands of those.
Okay. Yeah. My bad. But
we'd make the best one.
Exactly. Yeah, completely.
That's what we need to know.
Completely.
Yeah. Well, Gina, this was great. And like I said a moment ago, we're going to have a wonderful conversation about technology with Dr. Sally Creel. I can't wait to unpack it here together. Dr. Creel is known lovingly in her district as Agent STEM, and I just love that. STEM, of course, stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, but it is the use of those skills inside of schools. I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir on that one. Sally was actually the head of STEM for the entire Cobb County School District in Georgia, but her journey to becoming lovingly known as Agent STEM was anything but conventional.
My background was really unconventional. I started off as an elementary educator. And my first year teaching, my principal departmentalized us. And she said, you're going to be in charge of science and social studies. And I was like, okay. We didn't have any science books. I was in a district that they didn't have them. They hadn't adopted them in forever. And so everything we did, we had to kind of figure out. So it got you into that mode of being really creative and trying to be innovative. Then we adopted an emerging technology at the time, which was a giant laser disc that you use to teach science with. And so I had to learn to adapt and, rely on the technology resources that we had. And that just kind of helped build that mindset of being MacGyver, if you will, in the classroom, that there isn't one solution and, okay, this is something new. Let's try this out. And, oh, wow, that didn't work. All right, let's try this out. And that led me into, I really like technology. I've enjoyed doing those things back to, my first computer. I had an Apple IIe back in the day. And I had the floppy disks and the hard disks and all the other kinds of technology. I mean, that stuff was just fun to me. I wasn't necessarily great at it, but I enjoyed it. And my kids enjoyed it. And so I saw that in my classroom. And I was very blessed to work with some amazing educators who poured into me. And I had the opportunity to continue that work, working in some very large school districts and leading the work in STEM and in science education. And we were always leaning into our teachers who were those early adopters who would find stuff and say, hey, what about this? What about this? And I'd be like, I don't even know what that is, but all right, tell me more.
I just love how Dr. Creel described that early experience of just having to be resourceful.
Yeah.
Figuring things out as you go, especially when there aren't ready-made solutions. It's so relatable for educators everywhere.
Absolutely. We've lived this, and we've also seen this so many times. We've all had those moments where you just got to make it work with whatever you have. And it's amazing how that kind of creativity can actually drive innovation, especially innovation inside of a classroom. So, I mean, Dr. Creel's experience with using that laser disc to teach science, that is outside of the box thinking, and it gave her that reputation that she has today.
Yeah. And, it's that mindset of adapting to new tools, even when you're not an expert right away.
Yeah.
That really stands out. So later on, Dr. Creel shifted from just doing this on her own in a classroom to helping others innovate.
Yeah.
I think before we keep pushing forward, I want to know, where are some of the cool ideas and innovations that she helped bring into schools in her role?
We tried just a lot of things. So bottom line is, we would go into administrators and they had the quirky teacher or the quirky administrator that would come to me and go, I want my school to be a STEM school. And I'd be like, okay, so what does that mean to you? And for some of them, it meant heavy technology. For others, it meant environmental applications. For others, it meant different things to different people. And it could be a combination of all of those. It was a matter of digging down to what were those core values for that school and what were the needs in that building? What are their students' needs? And then we would look at how can we adapt what it is that what your data says that your students need, and how can we wrap that in these engaging technology opportunities for students to build skills and, be excited about the learning that's happening. And that's where we found really the most success. One of the early things that we did is we used robotics. This probably isn't very politically correct, but I called this one robot that we used my gateway drug to robotics, because it was this little robot that you couldn't break. It's a Sphero robot. And you can pick that sucker up and throw it across the room and it's not going to break. And when I would do that and I would show teachers, I'm like, here, look, play with this robot. And first thing they would do, a lot of them would go, oh no, I can't do that. I can't touch a robot. I'll break it. And that's at all levels, depending, if that wasn't their background. I was like, no, you're not going to break this one. They're like, no, no, that's not for me. And I'd pick it up and I'd literally throw it across the room. I was like, see, you're not going to break it. And they're like, really? Okay, well, let me try it then. And that fear, once we got over that initial barrier of fear of the new thing, they were like, this is so fun. I can use it to do this, or I can use it to do that. And I'm like, yeah. And then that opened up their mindset to, wow, well, maybe I can try this thing or that thing, and whatever the thing became.
I love that. Dr. Creel's story about robots, the way she used them, really highlights something I think important. So often schools think I have quote unquote done technology, right? That's because every student has a device, or we have a technology lab, or whatever it is, right? But she says, it's not really about that, us checking a box. Rather, it's about looking at what each school and what each student needs, tailoring the approach, utilizing the technology that we can afford, and that's most appropriate in order to get the outcomes that we actually want.
Yes, all the snaps. It's not time for DMI, but all the snaps.
We might be coming back to that.
I'm just saying, and I think it's such a key point. Technology is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
What's powerful is figuring out what the unique needs of the students are and how technology can help meet those needs. The way Dr. Creel approaches it, empowering teachers to explore what works for their students, that is really what stands out to me.
I completely agree. And I love that focusing on making it hands-on for teachers too, right? Letting them explore without the pressure of perfection. I think technology, as she referenced, scares a lot of teachers, right? But Dr. Creel has worked with so many educators on this, managing those challenges, especially when it comes to training and helping teachers get comfortable with those new tools. I think if you're an administrator or somebody in professional development, she had some really thoughtful advice about how to approach this conversation like she does.
I was blessed early on. I started doing professional development and attending professional development with amazing educators. Tom Brown from Kennesaw State University, Marley Tierce. Those are my heroes and my mentors who've definitely helped me grow. But one of the things that they taught us, they never trained us on anything they didn't give me. So if I didn't have the tool or the resource to go back and practice with, I don't do the training. And so that's a big piece for teachers. We either give them the technology and we don't really train them on it, or we don't give them the resource and we expect them to know how to use something. And so it's really important for them to have it in their hands, but then have that support system to help them understand how to use it and how to train with it. And that's a piece that it's hard because there's no time. Nobody has time for anything. You barely have time in the day to go to the bathroom or grab a Hot Pocket or something. But how do you balance I need to learn this cool new thing? And I think my mindset has always been, I need to know enough so where I can get it started. And then the kids and I figure it out together. And I think that has served us well. It's not always perfect. I mean, oh gosh, I've had major fails where I'm like, well, nothing will connect. Bluetooth does not like me today, and I don't know why. But as an educator, if you have the mindset that you're okay with that happening every now and then, and you're modeling failure for your students so they see you're trying something, you're failing, but you're working with them, they relate to that. And that creates, again, that community in your classroom.
So good. Dr. Creel emphasizes the importance of giving teachers the tools they need along with the proper training. How many times do we get stuff and it's like, here you go.
Yep.
Here's the one pager.
If you're confused, just give it a Goog.
Just fine. It's fine. It's fine. And it's such a game changer when educators have the resources in hand and capital A&D, the support they need to use them effectively.
Absolutely, Gina. And that hands-on experience that she's giving is crucial as well, right? Especially when we consider how hectic teachers' schedules can be, right? It's refreshing to hear Dr. Creel's perspective on learning alongside students, and we've heard that several times this season, rather than feeling like they need to have all the answers right away.
This mindset, it fosters a sense of community in the classroom.
Yeah,
and it also sets a great example for students about embracing challenges and learning from mistakes. Dr. Creel mentioned some challenges in keeping students engaged, especially post-pandemic. And she shared how introducing novel concepts can help break through that particular barrier.
Anybody teaching post-pandemic knows that is the biggest struggle for us, is how do we engage our students and how do we keep them engaged in that learning? And so if we can do something that's novel, if we can introduce a concept that gets them to forget that they're supposed to be this cool seventh grader and, put on this facade in the classroom and actually be like, oh, wow, that's cool. They probably wouldn't say it like that. I'd say something else that I don't know. But anyhow, that's half the battle. Now they've actually engaged with what I'm trying to teach them. And so I have an opportunity for that to get into their long-term memory storage, which is where I want it to go. And I also give them that motivation for wanting to learn XYZ. Well, we're going to be using this tool to help us learn about that. Okay, well, I want to use that tool. So I want to use the VR headset. I want to be fully immersed in this world. Or I want to understand how I can leverage some of the AI models that are out there, those large language models that could help me get started with an outline of something, of what does an outline to create a resume look like? If I'm a student in high school that's going to try to work on my first resume, I can at least get an outline using AI And then I fill it in, I adapt it, I take it and make it my own. But if we don't teach them how to use these tools that they're going to use in the workforce and use in real life, we're doing them a disservice. So we have to give them the opportunity to experience it, even if it's not their thing. So they need to understand on a basic level how robotics work. They need to understand on a basic level and have exposure to drones. They need to have exposure to all these things so that they can know, A, is that something I like? I want to do more of that. Or B, that's not something I like, but I understand it enough to be able to interact with it in the world in the future. And that knowledge is powerful for them because we're building a foundation that they can continue to build on for the rest of their lives. But we've also empowered them to make decisions about their future and the classes they want to take and then the career trajectories they might want to take.
Dr. Creel said about using technology to engage students rather than seeing it as a distraction. That point, that just really stood out to me. I think that's something a lot of educators are grappling with. How do we keep students connected to the learning experience without letting technology pull them away?
Exactly. I think it's easy to assume that introducing technology is automatically going to lead to distraction. But like Dr. Creel mentioned, if we use it creatively, whether it's VR or AI or even something simple like introducing gaming concepts, it can actually draw students in. It'll do the exact opposite, right, of what we're so afraid of. It's about channeling their interest towards tech and using that to move them towards learning instead.
Right on. You know, it's so important, right, to give students that exposure. It's about that exposure. As Dr. Creel pointed out, these are the tools they're going to encounter in almost any future career. So teaching them how to use and interact with technology in a meaningful way is key. But it's also a delicate balance. That career coach in me, doing career education for over 18 years, that resonates with me so much.
It's a delicate balance. There isn't a right answer, like a one way to do it. It really is very dependent upon the different classrooms, the students that you're serving and your communities. But it's trying to channel that desire to be connected. So why is it that they want their phone? What is it that they're seeking? Are they wanting to be connected? All right, so if they want to be connected, what can we create in the classroom that's going to give them an opportunity to experience that type of, is it little short videos? Well, then fine, let's make little short videos with each other about the topics that we're learning, and then let's watch those together. So we're channeling whatever it is that they're desiring. If they want to play video games, we use gaming as an opportunity to learn different content. So we've been using and partnering with different groups that use gaming to teach concepts. So let's pull more of that in there. What is it that is the distractor for them? And what's a way to channel that for something positive? And then talking to the kids, like asking them, how would you like to learn about this? What would be really cool for you? And then let's see what we can do to accommodate that. Some of the things, obviously, we're not going to be able to do. But, you know, there might be a way to do some of it to a degree that gives them a chance to feel like it's not being done to them. It's being done with them and with what they want to learn about in mind, and in a way that doesn't kill them with boredom. I mean, we've all been in classes, the shadow a student movement. I'm sure you are familiar with that, where you shadow a student all day long and you go through their classes all day long. I've done that with a couple of them, and some of them absolutely amazing. Wow, wonderful. Others, I was bored to tears. And so it's like, what can I do to prevent that from happening to a child? And that's where the technology space could be an option. It's not the only option, and there's definitely a balance that needs to go in there. They need some unplugged time. They need some of those opportunities, definitely. But, you know, there are ways to use the plugged and unplugged versions of technologies to really support that type of learning.
I love what Dr. Creel said about really understanding why students are drawn to things like their phones or video games and finding ways to channel that interest into learning. It's about working with their natural tendencies, not against them.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of something I've heard from the deaf community. I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but they say nothing about us without us. And I think that this idea is not to create solutions for people without involving them in the process, right? That applies so well here. If we're designing classroom experiences for students, shouldn't they be a part of the conversation?
I mean, novel.
I know. Well, they may not have the final say. I don't think we need to give students the final say. But how often do we as adults sit in a room and decide what's best for kids without actually talking to them? And I just feel like Dr. Creel handled that so well.
as a student when I was one 1,000 years ago, and then as an educator, I 100% believe that having student voice as a part of the conversation is critical. Involving students can open up a world of possibilities that we might not see otherwise. Dr. Creel pointed out that those connections that they make across subjects are sometimes things we as educators miss because we're not in each other's classrooms.
Yeah, and that's where we need to really listen to their perspectives. Dr. Creel actually had firsthand experience seeing the impact of student feedback, and I just love this.
And the most powerful experience I had was at a local high school in the district that I was working in. And so I was talking to a student and I was like, well, how do you see these classes connecting? And he was like, well, in this class, I'm doing this, in this class, I'm doing this, in this class, I'm doing this. And he like connected it beautifully. And I was like, do you think your teachers know that? He goes, well, of course they do. And I'm like, I don't think they do, because they're not sitting in each other's classes understanding. And this child, I mean, you know, those kids that are very perceptive and bright in your school, or just the ones that have that intuitive feel, talk to them. Ask them, where do you see connections between our classes? And leverage what they've noticed and what they understand to help you plan those interdisciplinary lessons. And then look to see where technology could be a tool to enhance that type of learning. But the kids have so much insight, and definitely it works better with your middle and high school students. But those elementary students, some of them are pretty perceptive. Elementary is different because you're the one teaching everything, so you know what you're teaching and it's easier to integrate necessarily. But in middle and high school, when they're starting to switch classes and they don't have the same teacher for everything, it is much harder to collaborate. And that's how you build those really dynamic opportunities for learning to happen, is when it touches multiple classes. That's when it's hardest, though. It's because it touches multiple classes. But that's where the insight of those students that have been through those classes is invaluable.
Did you see that? She highlighted the power of listening to students' perspectives. It's so important to involve them in the process and tap into the connections they're already making across those subjects.
Yeah, exactly. And the example she shared about that student recognizing those interdisciplinary links was such a great reminder of how much insight kids have when we just take time to ask, right? It's amazing how much more dynamic learning can become when we invite students to share their observations, ideas, and the connections that they're seeing.
Right. It's all about creating those opportunities for collaboration and allowing that technology to enhance that learning experience, not just as a distraction, right? But as a meaningful tool.
And that, I think, leads perfectly into this conversation about the future of education. With all these technological advancements, right, especially things like generative AI. So I asked Dr. Creel what she sees as the next big shift in education and what excites her most about how technology might shape learning in the years to come.
It's the mindset of not looking at how do we stop it? How do we prevent it? How do we not have cheating? It's, how do we use it for good? So change your mindset from how do we stop it? How do we get it out of here? How do we prevent it? To how can we harness its power for good? And then how can we utilize that to help prepare students for the future world that they're living in right now, but then also for their reality. We know that the careers they're changing, adapting, and advancing at such a rate, we don't know what those careers are going to be. So how can we utilize whatever the new thing is that keeps coming out? How can we use that to prepare them for what they're going to experience, and giving them that skill set, giving them that agility of thought that is necessary to be adaptive in an ever-changing world that is rapidly advancing? There isn't like one specific skill. It's a multitude of them. And they have to understand, like, again, just that basic understanding of some of them, and then understanding where their strengths lie. Like, what is it that they enjoy? What do they like? And then how can you leverage that thing that you enjoy into a real career? Like you talk to lots of kids, they're going to become basketball stars. All right, you might be, but what else could you be? What else interests you? What else, do you want to do? And then if it's gaming, all right, great. What aspect of it? Are you going to be the player? Are you going to design the games? Are you going to be the broadcaster? What is it that you're going to do? And so those are the things that we need to give them insight into and opportunities to experience. So writing the script for those types of things as a writing assignment that's going to engage them in a way that's just different. So that's the opportunity for teachers, is to not necessarily be so reactive when a new thing comes out and like, yeah, we can't have that in our classroom, to what can it look like? And when they start drinking the Kool-Aid, it is scary because they are all in. And I love that. And you're like getting text messages at, crazy hours of the day. Look what I just found. I'm like, ooh, that's amazing. Once you've nurtured the monster, though, you have to continue to nurture the monster. So when they get excited about something, you have to figure out, how do you get to yes? So as the leader in the building, you have to figure out, how can you get to yes? And they're going to come to you with some crazy ideas. And you're like, there is no way in the world we can do this. What can we do with what they're doing? Because the worst thing we can do is encourage. And now they've gone out on a limb and they've brought you this new thing they want to do. And you're like, no. So we've got to find that delicate balance. And sometimes these things are expensive. So there's a cost there. There are grant opportunities. You have to just be really creative and make sure that you don't immediately go no, but you go, all right, let me see how we can get to yes and what part of that we can do.
I really love what Dr. Creel said about shifting our mindset with technology. It's not about stopping it or preventing misuse, right? Those might be important things, but ultimately it's about finding ways to harness it for good. When we think about preparing students for an unpredictable future, we have to give them tools they need to be adaptable and to be creative problem solvers.
Yeah, Andrew, it's not just about teaching them how to use the technology, but about helping them discover where their strengths and passions lie. You know me, like strengths language person. I love it. And how they can leverage those to create real opportunities for their future careers, whether it's gaming, coding, or even something as unexpected as flying drones. And, for me, my background I've shared before is social work, it's human development. And I see how all of this interacts with those fields as well, too. Yeah. It's really allowing young people to think about who they are, discover their strengths, the things they like, the things they dislike, and then thinking about their futures. This really is such a good conversation.
Yeah, I agree. So we talked about a lot of ideas, but I think we've now arrived at the practical question, right? How do we actually do this? We've all seen how these emerging technologies are already making a measurable impact on students. And I'm also confident Dr. Creel could have shared a dozen more examples with us than she actually did. But she gave us several examples of how tools like drones, stop motion animation, and other things are helping students engage, build creativity, and even improve their academic performance.
Students are using stop motion animation and designing scripts. They're writing scripts and telling movies and creating that. And they're learning how to be a video editor. And they're doing that in kindergarten. Like kindergartners are doing that. And they're doing it in a way that it's a kindergarten one and it's using claymation, but they're still doing the whole thing. And it's amazing. And so you show that kindergarten created tool to a high school teacher who's not giving their high school students the same opportunity necessarily in an English class. And you go, they're doing this in kindergarten. Imagine what our students could do here if we just approached it differently. And so it gives the power of what if in a different way. And that was no dig towards our high school teachers. They're amazing. They do wonderful things. It was just an opportunity to highlight that. So you see that. You see drones in the classroom, and I'm working a lot with those right now. And I'm seeing that working with special education students. And so we're giving special education students the drones. And so they're learning how to do computer science using a drone. And that's not a typical use, but it's working really well. And you have students that are showcasing, wow, this might be a struggle for me, academically, but look at how proficient I am with being able to code this drone or even fly the drone. Look at how my motor skills, and I'm able to fly this drone with great accuracy, or I'm able to do this, or I'm able to think about designing an obstacle course or something along those lines. And so you see students finding success in ways that they wouldn't normally. With the augmented and virtual reality, just the opportunity to be fully immersed with students that haven't necessarily gone beyond the geographic bounds of their hometown, and the chance to see and experience other places, it's invaluable. It's incredible. And the students just forget where they are. I had a funny story the first time I gave my personal child a VR. I was so excited that she was using it. And I didn't think about the fact that she couldn't see where she was going, and she bumped all into stuff and knocked things over and all the other crazy things. So, you get excited with the kids. And I think teaching right now is hard, and being a student is hard. And if you can have something that's going to bring joy and excitement into your class that you're looking forward to, that's a way to revitalize and fill your tank as an educator. And it's a way to do that for your students as well. So you're giving lifelines to both of you. Now, on the whole thing of technology can also be hard. So as that administrator going into those classes, you have to have grace with those teachers that are trying those things. Just like me on my day where none of the Bluetooth worked, you have to say, all right, they're trying something different. That didn't work. They did test it out. What can we do in the future to problem solve this? So it does need to be a well thought out plan. Don't get me wrong. And there's a difference between the two. But, we're seeing all of those. We're partnering with universities. I work with Kennesaw State University, and they have this amazing interactive research methods lab where students can use AI technology, and then there's augmented reality built into it to design a research study from start to finish. And it takes them through all of the steps, and it's completely free, and they can do it from a distance, or they can join in with other groups. And so technology it's leveling the playing field and providing so much access for students that they didn't necessarily have. They don't have to be at the university to have access to this and have access to this resource to help them develop a really well thought out research study. They can utilize the technologies that have been embedded and developed from afar. And they're creating virtual labs that you can set up that have this whiteboard, and you can have the same experience in this virtual lab, but it looks just like the real one. It's just amazing to me that we have all these opportunities, and our kids can do those too.
Dr. Creel's insights about incorporating innovative technologies in the classroom is so inspiring. I love how she highlights the creativity of young learners, even like kindergartners, like my kindergartner, using stop motion animation. I have a kindergartner, and this would be blowing his mind, let alone my mind, right? It really shows how if we give students the right tools, they can create amazing things regardless of their age.
Absolutely. Yeah, these tools, it's fascinating to me, can open up opportunities for students to succeed in ways that we might not have thought possible and certainly wouldn't have been possible 5, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, seeing special education students, as she talked about, excel with using drones or augmented reality, that stuff is really cool. It's just incredible. And it emphasizes to me how important it is for educators to embrace these technologies.
And, Dr. Creel's emphasis on finding that balance between traditional teaching methods and innovative technologies is crucial. It's all about supporting teachers and providing them with the resources they need to experiment and integrate these new tools without feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, that is definitely the key, right? Not feeling overwhelmed. So as Dr. Creel said, it's about understanding where each school is on that journey, right? For educational leaders out there, I'm sure you're curious what specific strategies you guys can use to implement some of the things we've been talking about and to begin blending some of these innovative approaches into what you're already doing. Dr. Creel had some really great advice on this.
I think as an educator or as an administrator, you definitely need to have a very good conception of where your school is on a continuum of implementing innovative ideas and technology. Where is your school? And your school is not going to be all at the same place. You're going to have pockets of innovative teachers that are already over here doing all this crazy things. So there isn't a one size fits all. And you, just like we differentiate for our students, we might have to differentiate for our classrooms. People always ask me, like, how many STEM lessons should I do and how frequent should they happen? There isn't an answer for that. It's what does it look like in your building? If you need to start with a Friday STEM day, or this is going to be my technology day, then that's where you start. Because for some of your teachers kicking and screaming, you're going to have to start there. For teachers that are already on board with it, then you start with a more gentle one. Show me where this is in your lesson plans. Let's try to see this maybe once or twice this 9 weeks. And then you kind of increase that frequency, that expectation. But if you're expecting it, you're measuring it, you're looking for it, you're actually monitoring it. And then giving them the resources for that. Don't just do this unfunded mandate of integrate technology without any training, without any resources. They've got to have that side too. And so that sometimes requires you to get creative. I love partnering with our businesses, a local business community, our partners in ed, because they have access to resources, technology, people that are using things that I don't know how to use. And so that, again, provides our students with a real example of how this is being used or how this concept is actually relevant to the real world. but then it brings in someone else to help teach something with them. And they bring in their tools, their technology, their resources, whatever it is. If it's the auto mechanic that has this cool piece of equipment that they use to diagnose a challenge to an engine, bring that in the classroom. You probably can't bring that in the classroom, but you know what I'm saying? Bring a video of that person doing that in the classroom, and talking live with the students. You have kids that might be, car kids that really enjoy that. And then she might be really excited to learn about how she could use this piece of equipment in the future to diagnose something on her car. So you never know what the technology is going to be and what's going to spark that interest in the kids. But everything is having more and more technology integrated into it, even our clothing. So it's not going away from us. So the more access we provide them to people that are doing these things, uses of it, examples of it, and we do so in a way where we're nurturing those teachers, that's how we get it into our classes. But we've got to support them, and we've got to let them feel like it's okay to fail every now and then, not always, every now and then, and give that delicate, healthy fear. That doesn't sound like the right word, but we're supporting them. We expect this needs to be done, but I'm here to help you with it. And you literally have to help them with it.
Gina.
Yes.
She packed in some really great insights for us.
So much. I understand why she's Agent STEM.
Yes, yeah. She definitely earned that title. There's so much to think about here. Lots of practical advice, certainly lots of challenges to our assumptions. And I feel like, we learned if she wasn't Agent STEM, she'd be Ninja STEM. She hit us with so much stuff that I wasn't even expecting. So she just did a really great job.
It is all about creating an environment where teachers can thrive and where students can really engage in their learning. And I think Dr. Creel gave us a lot to think about. So much information, I think, that we have TMI. And if we have TMI, it's got to be time for DMI. That's right, friends. It's time for DMI. And DMI stands for Don't Miss It. So Andrew and I are going to each highlight one key takeaway from today's show that we believe you shouldn't miss. So Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's something from Dr. Creel's conversation that you want our audience to remember?
Well, you could take copious notes on this and keep applying what she said for years, right? But the thing I think I really loved, one of the things that she had said that I've never heard before, is she talked about one of the robots she had as a gateway drug to technology. And she was not talking about it for students. Students are totally ready to embrace technology. She was talking about it for teachers, right? So when she walks in with a robot and she says, I think this could be something that could help engage your students in your classroom, the first thing a lot of those teachers do is they say something like, oh, you don't want me touching that. I'm going to break it, right? And she's like, no, this is the robot you cannot break.
Right.
And to make her point, she throws it across the room. I just love that, right? And what I love is that idea of if you're a school administrator and you're sitting there and going, I would really love to do this, but Andrew, you have not met my teachers. I got a couple of 50, 60-year-old teachers who are still against iPhones, they're so anti-tech. This is never going to happen. I want it to happen in order to make, engagement and learning better, but I don't think this is the teacher for that. You got to find a gateway drug. You got to find some technology that they would go, you know what? That is making my classroom a better thing, and I can't break it, right? And I love that concept. So exploring not what are all the ways, but what is one way that you could get started that a teacher wouldn't be afraid of, and they would go, "Oh, this is cool. Let's dive in." What about you, Gina?
I'm gonna probably think about her throwing that robot across the room.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Maybe it's a habitude image.
Why not? Throwing robots.
I love it. Well, for me, it was early on in our conversation, but, I think too often, especially when we think about technology, I think many of us want it to become a give and go. I don't have to do much to it. It's just here. I use it. Not necessarily school in a box or classroom in a box, but it's I'm given it and it's ready to be used. Right. And I think Dr. Creel, makes great points about the most successful experiences, the most successful outcome she's had is when she asks questions and creates solutions best for the school, for the community, and for the students. And she said this, she's like, it is a matter of digging down to what the core values are for the school, what were the needs in that building, what their students' needs are, and then look at how we can adapt like the best practice that we know really works, but it serves and meets all of those needs. And it also helps with the curating of data and the experience that the young people, the students, and the community ultimately has. And I just think if we would take time to look at best practices, look at technology, look at these resources, but then adapt them to be usable and user-friendly in the environment in which we live. Yeah. It's like starting where we are instead of like there's this, school on a hill that's doing it this way and we have to do it that way. And then we fail at it and we're like, well, we tried, it didn't work. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a great example because where Dr. Creel was for so many years, Cobb County, it is a major suburban county outside of Atlanta, Georgia. They have a lot of resources. Their students are primarily going to four-year institutions and they're going to get white-collar jobs. Many people listening to this, that's not their kids. Right. That's not their environment. Right. And so if you take everything that Dr. Creel did and just do it in your school, that may not work, right? What may have worked there is not going to work there. So you're saying, let's get back down to the root of the issue and talk about who we actually have in our building and then go from there. I love that. Yeah. Thanks. So good. Gina, good insights. Thank you. Dr. Creel, incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, we were lucky to have her. She's an amazing leader. She's a very busy person, has so much going on. So we're just really, really grateful that she was sharing some of her wisdom with us today. We are also grateful for you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the School on a Mission podcast. Now, before you hit skip onto your next podcast, we've got a little challenge for you. Grab a pen, a notebook, a sticky note, or even the back of your hand if you have to. And we want you to write down one action you're going to take this week because of what you heard today. Maybe it's something you're going to do, something you're going to investigate further, read more about, or maybe it's just a person you need to meet with. Whatever it is, write it down. Got it? Perfect. Now shoot us a DM on social media with your action step. We would love to see what awesome things you're up to. Until next time, friends, stay curious, stay bold, and keep leading your school on a mission. The School on a Mission podcast is produced by Growing Leaders, powered by Maxwell Leadership Foundation. You can find out more about Growing Leaders at growingleaders.com. We want to especially thank Dr. Sally Creel for joining us as a guest in today's episode. This podcast was co-produced by Angelica Oliver and Kara Mallory. To find out more about the School on a Mission podcast, head over to schoolonamissionpodcast.com.